this game great, right? Is everyone's got their own take on it. There's an almost infinite amount of teams you can create, and as much as sometimes it feels like, oh, there's these dominant archetypes and they've got to play those things, both making your own twist on that and just going a completely different direction are both really viable. And it's been cool this weekend just to see how many different teams people came up with, where it'd be tough to put most of the teams that we've seen in any sort of box.
Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting one to categorize. I know we talked about it at the beginning of the day, like what pairs are we expecting to see, but there has not been set sixes by any stretch of the imagination. Definitely everyone's coming up with their own ideas and bringing some new thoughts to the table. At the beginning of the meta game, I think when we first got the ladder dropped, yes, Golden Go Murkrow was the thing. We accepted that was a very, very good pairing. But then we see a lot of players starting to explore, play around with it, and see where they can go with it. So a lot of really good innovation here, certainly helping things out. Definitely a lot to think about. And the players, I will say, are in team selects. That's why they're focused down on those screens. So we will be getting into the action very, very shortly. I think from these teams, the leads are huge, particularly with the Palafin team. If you can get that lead activated early, get to the hero form earlier in the game, you do get to immediately put down a lot of pressure. And you ask questions of Joe, right? You say, do you have something that can take these hits?
Yeah, and I think we see kind of what we're expecting. We do see Palafin on here with Dragonite flanking it. On the other side of the field, Golden Go and Amoonguss. I kind of like this from Joe. I think kind of a key element of playing against Palafin is it's probably going to try to go in and out, right? So there's going to be likely a switch of some sort early in the battle. Usually it's a move that creates that space.
Yes.
But you're going to get sort of some free turns, right? It's not like a ton of pressure early in the game, but there will be a ton of pressure late in the game. So it's really important to kind of control the board, try to keep the position positive, because it's kind of just inherently stacked against you late in the game. And we just actually just see a hard switch.
Yeah, Palafin, the 0 leaving the field. We'll see what it comes back looking like later as it swaps out for the King Gambit. That's going to be... I like the fact that he just switches it out, because he's basically inviting Joe to make a read. He's saying, if you call this right, you get a great advantage. If you call it wrong, that is very unfortunate, and you kind of wasted the turn and let me get away with it. But of course, the Terror for the Golden Go, going with the Steel type, this is going to be a very impactful Make It Rain, I think. I mean, just the extra damage alone is very problematic. About half on both sides of the field, but it does take that drop to a special attack, as Dragonite, without the help of Pelipper, just lands the Hurricane. That Amoonguss has taken a huge amount of damage. Not enough for a knockout, though, as it retaliates with the Spore.
Yeah, that's great. That Amoonguss is just sturdy enough there where, it's been a tough Pokemon to knock out for a long time. And interesting thing to see from Gavin's side of the field, again, one of the more clever team builders of the past decade. We've been seeing a lot of very physically oriented Dragonite. The Hurricane there, not going to come as a surprise in open team sheet, but doing a bunch of damage there. And a great move on Joe's side also. That Dragonite with multi-scale rather than inner focus, which of course makes sense in a special set, but cutting down the damage of Make It Rain, which will not happen a second time.
Well, there is going to be the removal of that Amoonguss. Doesn't want to get knocked out that easily and wants to get the Regenerator bonus. Make It Rain once again from this Goldengo. Does get the knockout on Dragonite. That is definitely going to be a big switch around there. Of course, the King Gambit is able to hold on through that, but facing down a pretty rough pairing as the Iron Head goes into the Garchomp. The rough skin will get a little bit of damage back as well. That King Gambit is dangerously low. That said, it's time, Scott. I'm very excited for this. It was a 0, now it's a hero. Here comes a Palafin, able to cause some problems. It's got in scot-free, it's got in at full health, and in a great position. It does have the potential to get a little bit of assistance coming through as well.
Yeah, we're seeing some huge Dondozo Tatsugiri energy here as all of the Pokemon around them kind of are starting to crumple here, but we will see Palafin at full power, the very heroic-looking Pokemon on the field.
Are you saying that's not a heroic pose?
It is a pose, for sure.
It's definitely heroic, Scott. We can argue about that later, but it is getting partnered now by the Pelipper, who is going to obviously set up Drizzle. The Rain making it even more impactful, I think, and to really get the most out of your hero, Palafin, may I recommend terastallizing it. It's exactly what Gavin is going to be going for in this game. That's definitely a heroic pose. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at that hat, heroism is the first thing that comes to mind.
That is definitely what I think of as it fires off a massive jet punch here in the Rain. That is going to be a one-hit knockout on the Goldengo, and that big Make It Rain is not going to be a concern anymore. Absolutely love to see how much work it can do. And what can this Garchomp do in retaliation? It is going to be the Dragon Claw. It isn't going to bring it below half, and it's going to lose a little bit of its HP for the trouble. So really, can Gavin just sweep the game with the Palafin is, I think, where we're looking at. Does Joe have an answer to this? Amoonguss definitely going to help out, though.
Yeah, I mean, not a great Pokemon to see when your team is a strategy based upon water types. So that Amoonguss is still really weak, right? Where, I mean, it's going to be pretty easy for him to attack this down, just a matter of, like, you know, how can he trade as few resources as possible to do that? Rage Powder is still pretty annoying here, right? You saw how much that Dragon Claw did. Life Orb Garchomp is it's a big boy. It hurts a lot. You really don't want to lose this Palafin with you know, so little health left on the King Gambit, where if that has to come out and really do anything, it's going to be very, very dangerous.
Yeah, the King Gambit's not going to be long for being able to play this game. Palafin, though, will Jet Punch. It does have to go to the Amoonguss, and of course, with the rain, with the Terra, it's definitely a knockout there.
Huge Rocky Helmet.
Yeah,
huge Rocky Helmet.
The Rocky Helmet, massive. It could change the numbers here on the Dragon Claw for this Garchomp. It is going to go for the Rock Slide, though. So pivoting away from that Dragon Claw, which would have got the knockout.
Minuscule Rocky Helmet.
It does get a lot of damage down. But of course, Pelipper, with control of the weather, does land a big Hurricane there. No question on that one. And takes out the Garchomp. So this Palafin feeling pretty good. Managed to navigate that really irritating turn where, yes, you're playing against the Amoonguss. It is going to eat your Jet Punch. But, you know, if you don't get punished for it, he got off scot-free on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the plus side is, I don't think this is over. Azumarill has a pretty good matchup against all these Pokemon, so there's definitely a world where it just starts Aqua Jetting things.
Yeah, but Jet Punch
that hurts so much, though.
Yeah, I was about to say, that is a heroic Jet Punch doing over half, and the follow-up from Pelipper, not enough for the knockout, but it does get the confusion. Will Azumarill end the game for itself? Let's find out as we navigate the rest of this turn. Azumarill is confused, and it does get to land the Play Rough. Doesn't even get the knockout on Pelipper, and I think we know what is coming in this final turn of the game.
Yeah, there's no longer a world where their Aqua Jets occur unless it's become an AoE move. Yikes.
Yeah, that has not been able to do it. So a flawless execution of the Palafin from Gavin Michaels puts him 1-0 up against Joseph Ugarte. Honestly, I wanted Palafin, and I got the perfect Palafin there.
I don't know what more you could ask for, buddy. It kind of reminded me of the Amelia game, but like this time it's the other water type doing it, where it's just like everything gets knocked out, the water types come in, they clean it up. You know, it's it. It was a weird one. It's a lot of fun. I gotta say, even as someone who's you know, rolling my eyes a little bit at just the concept of how Palafin plays, it's so hard to deal with, right? Where it seems like Joe actually traded pretty well to get in the situation where Palafin came out the field. It just didn't matter at all.
Yeah.
It's like whack. Like, oh, geez, where'd all my dudes go?
Oh no. Yeah, I think maybe Joe. I don't think he was caught short by it. I think he was kind of pinned in a position where it's like, what do you do? And maybe he's going to have to dig a little bit deeper on the team to see if there's an option to maybe try and navigate some of that. Because Jet Punch was causing a lot of problems.
Yeah, I mean, kind of looking at his team too. I mean, like, you know, he's got two Pokemon that can take it pretty well, right? Where like Azumarill was not trading back impressively, but yeah, certainly can tank it. And then I think the big thing that game, right, is that Amoonguss can't get hit by Hurricane.
Yep.
It was a bold play by Gavin to go for that without the rain. Like, it's still more likely to succeed than to fail. But yeah, I mean, that was just such a huge swing, right? Or even though Amoonguss got to get the regenerator boost, it was irrelevant because it was only going to absorb one attack anyway. And I think you just got to get more there. It is like a surprisingly scary pairing, though, right? If your team is relying on Amoonguss to deal with Palafin, and you just have Pelipper there, you know, it only takes one Hurricane, right?
Yeah, it doesn't take many of those to get the knockouts. I mean, the fact it took it from the Dragonite, I was impressed. But in the long run, it just wasn't able to do enough. So we're getting ready to head on into game number 2, see if there's any adjustments. I think Joe is going to be the one digging for the adjustments here. But it's certainly not looking too different right now. As, yeah, it's Dragonite and Palafin once again. The big question for me is how does he get the Palafin out? Does he just do the hard switch again? And if so, can that hard switch be punished? Of course, last game he switched in the King Gambit. There is a Garchomp on the field that could start to punish it. But will he go for it? Will he make that read? How will he try and navigate that situation? It's definitely a nice little mind game to play early on.
Yeah, I think another thing to point out, too, is that was a lot of damage for that Golden Goat. We've been seeing mostly the nasty plot variant. This is not that.
Yeah, it's no secret. It's a choice specs, right? I mean, it's on the team sheet, so just committing to it with the Terra type, boosting that damage. I mean, it really is like these two focal point Pokemon for both of these trainers, which, you know, it's the choice specs and the choice band, respectively. Just they're all about that one attack, and that's where they really want to succeed. Dragonite, though, going for the Protect here after that Terrestrialization. The Rock Slide will be doing no damage to the Dragonite. Let's see, I don't think it's going to be particularly impressive on the King Gambit. No, it is not. Confirming that one for those of you at home who forgot the type chart a little bit. As Golden Goat goes with the Make It Rain, still going to be a pretty significant chunk of damage damage onto the King Gambit, and that is something that does start to add up and could be problematic later. Yeah, the combination Rock Slide and the Make It Rain. King Gambit well below half now.
Yeah, Specs hurt so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like one of those things that players have moved off of, where I think Specs was definitely the preferred Golden Go item at the very beginning of the format, and Nasty Plot to me definitely feels like the later season sort of thing, so I was kind of impressed that players shifted so much. But it doesn't change the fact that Specs hurts so much, right? Where it is still a huge problem.
Yeah, the math does keep mathing when it comes to Choice Specs Goldengo. That is going to be a certainly tough one, as Pelipper makes an early appearance here, getting the drizzle set up as well, and trying to cause some problems. As Garchomp goes to the Dragon Claw, would have been going to the Dragonite, so smart there to get the Pelipper in. But what can the Pelipper really do here, as it's probably just going to get felled by the Make It Rain. That is going to land a huge amount of damage. Oh, it's not going to get enough on to the Pelipper. I thought it might, but of course that special attack drop coming through and causing some problems. King Gambit does get to Kauto Cleave and bring that Golden Go down to about half.
It's sort of a precarious position for both sides here, where, you know, as much as like Joe is dominating the damage dealt so far, giving a free switch to the Dragonite, which did manage to keep the multi-scale intact this time, and to Palafin's a little bit scary, where you'd like to stagger those ideally.
Yeah, well, the Golden Go's leaving the field, so Joe doesn't want to just hand over the Make It Rain, double knockout, double switch, which I think is good. And he gets the Amoonguss in full health. That's going to be really big later. There's the Rock Slide, though. This is going to get the knockout on the Pelipper, which is really big. And the King Gambit just holding on in this one, so able to potentially fire back and cause some problems that way. Garchomp loses a little bit of its health for that Life Orb, and there is the cleave from the King Gambit. Good chunk of damage down into the Amoonguss. Not sure how it works on the numbers as that Rocky Helmet. If this is a big one, Scott, we can get excited about this one.
Got him this time.
As it gets the knockout.
Yeah, I mean, I think mostly great for Joe there. I mean, there will be no staggering this time. I don't think that the King Gambit was super threatening, so it being knocked out isn't, like, fantastic for him. But he does get this situation now where, you know, we have sort of a strange situation where your Dragonite doesn't really want to be fighting this Garchomp, but it's not clear if Joe can really afford to be focusing on the Dragonite this time. You know, it's it's a tough spot. I actually really like the way Gavin played this, where Joe took the early lead, but getting these two Pokemon out at full health together is scary.
Yeah, well, the Amoonguss wants a little bit more health before it starts to be messing around with this Palafin, making sure it can get that regenerator ability activated is going to be huge. And unsurprisingly, you've got to capitalize on the last couple of turns of this rain. I mean, the Pelipper was on the field for a couple of turns, so we started to work through those as Palafin, Terra-type water, just doing more and more damage. It's going to be an absolutely overwhelming amount, I think, as Garchomp, yeah, doesn't want to deal with that heat, I think is fair to say, as it does protect itself, and we'll see exactly where these targetings are. It's going to be Jet Punch into the Garchomp, so wasted on that turn. The Golden Go gets away with it, and this could set up an interesting situation for next turn, as Hurricane will land into it in the rain, obviously going to hit, but not very effective, not a knockout.
Yeah, it's an interesting spot. You know, if Joe can somehow manage to get a swing with this Golden Go, then things would be really different. But it's tough. You know, Palafin threatening a knockout in either of these Pokemon, you know, Joe can take his pick. Still, you know, healthy Pokemon in the back, you know, maybe try and somehow to maneuver Amoonguss onto the field again, but there's still that full health Dragonite there. Even just breaking multi-scale would be a great step where, you know, nothing is going to one-shot this Dragonite until you get some chip damage and remove that.
Well, Palafin landing the Jet Punch, of course, onto the Golden Go. That's going to get easily knocked out. That one is taken off the field, and that's Joe's Terra Pokemon removed as well, a Pokemon that was dealing huge amounts of damage. It was a really Gavin's choice on which he wanted to knock out there. I don't think he was having many problems. Garchomp, though, will Dragon Claw into the Palafin. Not going to be threatening the knockout. Garchomp losing a bit of its health. And Dragonite going with the Hurricane. Yep, still got the rain. Still got the damage as well. So Garchomp felled on this turn. This game is coming down to just 2v2.
Yeah, I really love the Dragonite this game. Kind of interesting to know. So it's holding Sharp Beak, which is a pretty unconventional item. I think it's actually very important on this special Dragonite. You know, normally maybe it's a little surprising not to see it use a Dragon-type move to knock out its counterpart Garchomp there, but you know, your special, it's Draco Meteor, and there's consequences to doing that.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, wisely opting not to lower a special attack, but still a pretty nice situation now where poor Amoonguss is probably going to pay for this one, but Azumarill set up much better to actually deal some damage to the other side this time.
Yeah, this board is looking much better. Another Jet Punch from this Palafin into the Amoonguss. It's got way more health, and it's able to take that hit very nicely. Does get hurt by the Rocky Helmet as well. Obviously, the Hurricane is going to follow up from the Dragonite, and that is going to easily knock out the Amoonguss. But there's a lot more wiggle room for this Azumarill, and this could be the Pokemon to sweep the game. You called it out at the beginning of the game, Scott. You said these are the 2 Pokemon he needs to counter the Palafin, and they're in a great position to do that just now, as the Play Rough will take down the heroic Palafin.
Yeah, well, Dragonite's going to need to get some heroic Hurricane confusion going on here. I think that is the win con, unfortunately. Azumarill probably not going to be able to knock it out in one shot through multi-scale, but I assume it's such a sturdy Pokemon and is holding Assault Vest, so I assume Hurricane isn't a 2-hit KO. I can't claim to know my Shark Beak Dragonite calc super well.
Oh, it's going to be very close. Yeah, it's not going to get there. But Azumarill does fire back with the Ice Spinner, so the multi-scale, very important there. But Dragonite needs to do more damage this turn, or, of course, get that confusion. So there it is, landing, of course, the Hurricane. It is cleaning up, but it does get it. It gets the confusion. Let's see if Azumarill can attack with that Ice Spinner again. It's going for it. It's going to hit itself in confusion. And Gavin Michaels takes the set off one of the most important Hurricanes I've ever seen. It was about to get felled, and that is going to be a 2-0 for Gavin. Probably not in the game plan on how he wins it, but he's taking this one home off the secondary effect.
You don't think that's on the flowchart?
I mean, you can put it there, but I don't think you get to look at it enough. You know, if only there was a new item that would have prevented that secondary effect.
Yeah, well, he needed the Assault Vest, right? I mean, I think that was pretty funny. You know, I assume just what happened there is, you know, the Dragonite was just so inspired by seeing such a heroic Pokemon fall next to it that it was just trying a little bit harder on that turn. Maybe not. But yeah, I mean, I think, you know, the odds are actually, I believe, in Gavin's favor there, right? Where he could crit on 2 different occasions, he could get the confusion on 2 different occasions. The confusion itself is a coin flip. Close game though. I thought the adjustments by Joe were really good. Where the first game he just he couldn't afford to take all that damage in Amoonguss, and then he basically played the second game as well as he could have, right? Just like the math didn't quite work.
Yeah, I think the second game was the perfect flowchart until that end bit, which is just the anomaly, the outlier. That is certainly not the way I think you wanted to go, but I respect it. And honestly,